this role of sort of captaincy is an interesting one. And actually, I've got a question here from Hugh.
How do you keep your focus as captain, not just in the games that you play?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, and it's something that I probably had to learn to do. So when I was younger, again, it comes back to the stuff I just spoke around about trying to do it on your own. You think that like every decision, every moment, all of those things have got to be you. And actually, when you realize and when you step back and you like allow the people around you to help you, it becomes a lot less of a lonely place, and then it doesn't take your energy away. So ultimately, the biggest effect, talking just specifically like in game, on pitch captaincy, the biggest effect that I can have on the team, 95% say, is just me playing well. If I tackle well, carry well, call the line out, whatever it is, like if I get those things right and do those things really well, that's the best thing I can do for the team to help them win. Anything else, i.e. decisions of what to do on penalties, things to say in huddles, things to tell other people to do, we're talking, like I said, we're literally talking about 5% with that stuff. Like it's not, so actually in terms of where I put my energy on that, say 95% of my energy should just go into me and making sure that I'm playing well. Because again, it comes back to like I can't be telling the guys to chase kicks quicker if I'm at the back and shouting it. Like ultimately, as with all leadership stuff, like it lead by example, and never asking anyone to do something that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself is probably the most powerful part of leadership. So again, if I put that 95% energy in, I'm trying to be at the front of that. So in the kick chase, for example, I'm trying to be at the front. So now when I do say to the other lads, like, come on, we need a little bit more there, my voice carries so much more weight because I'm doing it. I'm there and I'm living it as well as I'm saying it.
So leadership's leading from the front, and don't ask them to do anything you wouldn't do yourself.
I think so, yeah. And I'd say probably be authentic is the other one as well. So don't be a better version of yourself. Don't try and be something that you think you ought to be. So just because you might have played in a team with a brilliant captain who was super serious, whatever it might be, and so you might now think you might be the absolute joker in the team. Like that might be your personality and just who you are. So then if you do step into a leadership role, or if that's where you end up. Now don't try and be that guy. Don't try and be super serious. Just be a better version of yourself. Like if you are a joker, if you do bring energy, then just do that in a way that benefits the team. So I'd say probably those two. If you're doing those, you're probably quite a long way to being a pretty good leader.
Because I'm seeing, especially in 2020, more sports men and women, especially captains, taking more of a progressive role in sort of social issues. I was quite struck by, I think in one of it's a couple of years ago, where the England cricket team were touring the West Indies, and Joe Root challenged one of the West Indian players on the use of homophobic language. And I like what Andy Murray's had to say about gender inequality. This year in tennis, Naomi Osaka and Lewis Hamilton standing up for sort of Black Lives Matter. And although I try to distance myself personally from the political element of it, the sort of debate on race, do you feel that's increasingly a role for captaincy, or do you feel that's something that you have to think about and look at?
I wouldn't say it's specific to captains. I think as sports people, I think as anyone with any sort of public figure, if you like, anyone that has any sort of following, and particularly anyone who children look up to, which quite often is a lot of sports people, whether you like it or not, you think you've signed up just to play rugby, but if you're good at it and you've got a following or whatever, like you have a responsibility to those things, I believe. And I think when you look at all of those, like you say, like you haven't got to politicize anything. When you look at all of those issues, whether it be homophobia, talking about gender equality, or talking about racism, Black Lives Matter, those movements, like it's all equality, isn't it? It's all just, you know, treating other people as you would want to be treated. And I hugely believe, and we've got some lads at the club that have been brilliant and that have gone and they feel passionate about, you know, these things or something that's affected them, and they've gone out and they've used their platform and they've used their voice to do something about it. And you know, I think that I think it's amazing. We've got Benno Urbano, who's just produced a documentary on Amazon called Everyone's Game, and it looks at like probably the class issue within rugby union, and there's a race part to it as well. But I think that's incredible. Like, he's taken time away from the sport and he's used his time to produce something which he feels passionate about and to try and make a positive change. So anyone that says, and this is what bothers me, like I look at Marcus Rashford at the moment, like that guy is a superstar. Like, the way that he is able to play football at that level, but also use his voice and his platform to speak about something that he feels passionate about, that he went through himself. Again, it comes back to like that authenticity. Like he knows the situation that those children are in, and to like, all he's bought is positive change. You know, he's bought more school vouchers for children and all these things. Like, you know, it's they're only good things. And anyone that says otherwise, I would seriously question their morals. That how anything that comes of those conversations and those movements isn't good. And ultimately, it's just about working towards equality, isn't it? It's just about working towards everyone having equal opportunity and feeling they have equal opportunity in life. So, like I said, I think it's bigger than captains. I think it's bigger than the sport. Like, I bet if you asked Lewis Hamilton or Marcus Rashford, what are you more proud of this year? What would you rather do? Would you rather, for Marcus Rashford, would you rather win the Premier League, or would you rather have see all these children fed and, you know, there is no food poverty? I mean, I would hope as a sportsman his answer would be, why not both? Because that should be their attitude. But ultimately, surely this is more important. Surely this is more important. Again, like, anyone that says otherwise, it's probably more of a reflection on them than it is on the issue.
How do you cope with the job that you have to do and just trying to retain focus on being a good rugby player when there's some pressure perhaps to think about social issues, when there's pressure to go and meet fans, pressure to be doing media stuff, interviews like this? But how do you keep your focus on your play?
So it probably comes back to that sort of life balance stuff. And there's a conversation that sticks in my mind. So I had a meeting with Eddie Jones probably 2, maybe 3 years ago now. And he sat me down on a big bit of paper. He wrote out, stress plus rest equals growth. So you stress something, you rest it, it gets bigger. So if you're talking about in the gym muscles, when you lift weights, you tear muscle fibers, that's the stress. You rest them, you eat good food, those muscle fibers get repaired, you get stronger. In very, very simple, you know, physiological terms. But, you know, that equation applies to everything. So he spoke to me around my rugby and was talking about how I was probably, in the way that I'm quite sort of detail and task driven. So the way that I am, like, everything that I was doing for 24 hours a day was a stress. Like, whether that was a physical stress or a mental stress, or I was thinking about training, I was watching training, or I was training, or I was eating, or I was stretching, I was doing, and I was never resting. So therefore I wasn't growing. I was just treading water. I was probably just staying the same player. And he just, with that equation, he just underlined rest. It was like a big highlight, underline rest, underline rest, underline rest. And it was like, he spoke about it specifically sort of within the England program. He said, look, you'll get stressed here. Like, we're going to train harder than anyone else in the world. So I've got no issue about you being stressed. He's like, but if you don't rest, if you don't understand yourself and find out how you need to rest, you'll never grow. So sort of in answer to your question, so for those guys, like, you don't need to be a better, for Marcus Rashford to be a better footballer, he doesn't need to be playing football and training 24 hours a day. He needs to, again, make sure that when he trains, it's at a high intensity, it's quality. He needs to make sure he's eating right, recovering, doing all of those things. But actually, if a mental rest and if something that gives him energy is fighting these massive social issues, then, you know, he's going to grow. And it's no surprise when you see these guys do these things that they then start playing better on the pitch as well. because they've got more of that balance. And then again, there might be a point where it goes too far. So sometimes with guys in a rugby context as well, they might be studying, they might have left all their work too late, and actually suddenly now they start studying loads in that last week before a game. Then it might knock on and it might affect the game. But when you get that balance right, it's all positive. It, like, one helps the other.
Interesting. One of the questions that came in from one of the OBs, Tom Saunders, asks about the sort of journey from club to international stage, and you mentioned sort of speaking to Eddie Jones there. I've got this sort of romantic notion that Eddie Jones phones you up and he says, Charlie, I'd like to invite you to come and join us at the England Cap. Tell me a little bit about how the call up came about and how it was all handled.
It's not as romantic as that. You often either find out just before, because you get added to a WhatsApp group that says you're in camp next week, be here at this time, here's the schedule, you'll get kit when you arrive. So
even if you've never played for England, the first time you heard was from a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, so my first camp was in Brighton, and it was before the Australia tour in 2016. I just got added to a WhatsApp called Brighton Camp, and then I got sent a schedule, and I'd never spoken to Eddie. And I got to camp, and I said, "Hi, I'm Charlie," and he went, "I know, I picked you." So yeah, it's like that was it. Like, then you're into it. So no, there's not this. Yeah, it's not as romantic as that. And I guess it comes back to that. I spoke about going from 20s back to the club. There's 20s where you're the man, you're playing, you're doing all those things. You go back to the club and you realise, right, no, I want to push on and be here. Then you might say that you do those things. You get to the club and you're playing. Suddenly now you're back in that boat again. You now go to England, and you're not just with the best player. You're the best players in the world. And these are the guys that are the best in the league that you've been playing against. But now actually you've got to find your feet in that environment. You've got to find out how you're going to get the best at yourself and how you're going to give to that team.
There has been some media coverage over the last few years that Eddie Jones himself is a very highly skilled, but also really intense coach and a really intense regime. Is that what it's like on the inside?
So I think... So yeah, training's intense, but it's intense because it has to be, because test matches are intense. So you can't just train at 60% and then expect yourself to pick it up to 100% at the weekend. So I think, yeah, the training reflects the games that are played. But I think Eddie is a character, and I'm sure everyone's sort of heard the stories of the things that he's done and the stuff that he's said and the way that he is in the media. But the thing that people probably don't like, he deeply, deeply cares about his players. And he deeply, deeply cares about making the team better. And so for some guys, and like, you don't realize it at the time, again, maybe because you're young or whatever, but for some guys, like, the way that he does that, he's on you, he's at you. Every minute of every day, he's at you, pushing you to make you better. And then for other guys, he'll see, and like he's more like, he's been in the game for such a long period of time, and he's been to the top of the game. Like, he's won World Cups, he's lost World Cup finals, he's been with Australia, he's been with South Africa, he knows how the game works. And yeah, the game moves on, but the people and the characters and some of the basic principles of how to be successful will always be there. Like, yeah, the science of it all and the athletes and the way that the game's played might change, but these basic underlying principles are going to remain pretty consistent for how to be successful. And he knows those because he's seen them, and he's seen them in so many different examples and through so many players, that he'll work out for you what's the best thing to get the best out of this guy, and help him realize, like, you both want the same thing. So it's kind of like, yeah, that's what you got to tell yourself when he's at you, that like, he wants me to be the best I could be, and that's what I want as well. So I can't sort of butt heads and fight against this. I've got to just push, and like, he only wants the best for me.
So you've been sort of in and out of the England team, and I suppose I'm going to flick to a question which came in from Amelia, which I think relates to that.
I was wondering if you've had any setbacks during your career, and if so, how have you overcome them? Thank you.
Yeah, I've had loads. Of big setbacks. I trained all the way through to the 2019 World Cup and then didn't make the squad. There was 31 went, and there was 33 of us that trained till the day before that they flew. So 2 of us were just missed out, and like that's an enormous setback. But I think when you when you flip your mindset on those things, I wouldn't change a single thing about my career. I wouldn't change a single thing about anything that's happened to me, because you learn more about yourself in those moments than you ever would when it's all rosy, going well, and all of those things. So yeah, I've had setbacks, but I think once you flip your mindset to see those as an opportunity for growth, then then the setback becomes less important. And actually, like the thing that you missed out on, or the game that you didn't win, or whatever it might be, if you see that as an opportunity for growth, and then there's two parts to this. There's seeing it as that opportunity, and then there's actually doing something about it. So there's learning from why that happened, or how that happened, or what it might be, and then it's like, right, now what have I got to go and be better at, or what would I do differently next time? And then if you always have that mindset, hopefully as you push on and move on, those setbacks become less and less, because you just learn from them and you're becoming better. You're part of a better team. You're a better player. All of these things.
That's a good time to take a question from Francesca, actually.
Have you ever fallen out of love or not enjoyed rugby at any stage in your career? If so, why and how did you deal with that?
No, I don't think I ever did. Like, no one loves training in the wind and wet in November when it's freezing cold. Right there and then in the moment, I'm probably not having the time of my life. But I don't think I ever did, because I think that again, that life balance. Like, I'm so grateful to rugby for what it's given me. And I genuinely love playing the sport. Like, I love training. I love being part of a team. I love spending time around the lads. Like, I genuinely have the best time. So no, I think if you just take rugby as a sport on its own, like, there'll always be times when it's not great, or it's not going well, or whatever it might be. But when you step back and you're grateful for what that sport gives you, and all the other things and all the human parts of that sport, then no, I don't think and I think that's probably the reason that I haven't fallen out of love with it, because I see all these other things that it gives me, and those are the things that are really special.
So one of the questions I like that came from Sam. He asked, who's the most skilled player that you've played against, and who's the most skilled player you've played with?
I reckon the most skilled player I've played with was probably George Ford. When he was at the club, just his ability to see the game, kick off both feet, pass, running game, quick step, he could just, from an attacking point of view, and as an attacking player, he can play the game a number of different ways. So yeah, he was always very impressive in terms of playing with. And then played against, I'd say, so there's some Danny Cipriani comes to mind in terms of someone who has the ability to produce stuff that very few people can. It's like, it would depend on how you define skill. So like, Sips could make these moments, could literally pull these moments out of nowhere, and some of them were undefendable because you'd never see anything like it. Like, no one else would even have the audacity to try it. So it depends if you're talking about that, or if you're talking about just straight consistency of, like, this guy just doesn't make mistakes. Because I think when you're that sort of Danny Cipriani style player, they're not all going to come off. So if you've got the audacity to try the big play, when it does come off, like I say, that could be the difference. That could be the big moment in the championship game. But when it doesn't come off, equally the other way. So in terms of just sheer consistency, someone like Owen Farrell, that's probably more his game. He just doesn't really make mistakes when you play against him. So he might not be magical, and he might not chuck the triple miss that goes over the top for the guy to score in the corner, but you can't get a mistake out of him either. So probably like those two in terms of the different ends of the spectrum.
I think any sort of club, even a club rugby player, always has this experience where when you're in training, there's always somebody who you just do not want to end up one-on-one with. You just know that if it's you having to defend them, you're going to be made to look stupid. People like that at Bath?
Yeah, the few. I mean, it's probably more. There's more of them for me than there are for other lads. There's lots of lads who can make me look stupid. So we've got some guys. We've got Semessa Rockadeguni. It's his footwork sometimes. I mean, well, for starters, if I'm out there defending him one-on-one, something else has gone seriously wrong. But if I am out there, then there's a lot of lads. There's in him, Jonathan Joseph, Anthony Watson. Like they're all going to make me look silly. I'm not going to touch any of them. So, yeah, first things first, I need to get myself back in the middle with people around me. So I'm not trying to defend those guys. And then if I am out there, I just need to close my eyes and pray for good luck.
So I'm just going to finish off with one. I love this question that came in. Some little boy called Bo. He's only 12, and he just said, well, what advice would you give someone my age who wants to have a career like yours? He too would like to play for Bath in England.
Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Don't have my career, have your own career. Go and be the best version of Bo. Like, you know what I mean? Don't try and be me, because if we had a world full of me, it'd be pretty boring. I'm not. So go and be, whatever it is that interests you. If it's rugby, if that's what you're passionate about, then put your time into rugby, put your time into your studies, like have balance in your life. And then, go and be the best version of both.
Brilliant. Well, Charlie, you've been so generous in giving up all this time and answering all these questions. It's been an absolute pleasure to sort of see you online. We'd love to catch up again properly once lockdown finishes. But we think of all of you all the time. Follow your careers, and we wish you all the very, very best. So, huge thanks for joining us, Charlie, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. It's been good to chat and brilliant to reminisce.